Leon here with the Songwriter's Mentor. Just having my first cup of coffee of the day. My mug is from one of my favorite groups, the Sands of Time. Good friends of ours from Florida. So if you're ever down in Central Florida and you know that the Sands of Time are playing somewhere, you need to go see them because they're great. And actually, one of the members of the group is, her name's Sandy. She's one of my songwriting partners. So we've written a few tunes together, and she's a great songwriter, great lyricist, and I always say she's my favorite country singer. Anyway, I want to talk to you today about songwriting methods. Obviously, those of you who've been writing songs for a while know that there's many different ways to go about this. There's no one correct method for writing a song. However, many songwriters find themselves writing songs the same way every time. They use the same method. So I want to quickly go over the various songwriting methods, and this is by no means an exhaustive list, but these are some of the various methods that I've encountered over the years of working with songwriters, because pretty much every songwriter that I've worked with has their own way of working. So these are the basic ways, though. A lot of people start with the music, an obvious place to start. Maybe you're playing the guitar and you come across a nice riff or a chord progression that you like. Same thing for piano players. For myself, sometimes I'll be playing, just improvising, just playing whatever comes to mind, and I hit upon a cool chord progression. I think, oh, that's good. I need to use that. And I might end up building a song around that. And there's some advantages to starting this way. A lot of folks will play some chords and then maybe start humming a tune, and everything kind of comes together. So some people start with the music first, and then they think about the lyrics. And then other songwriters do it simultaneously. Maybe you're one of those writers who writes the words at the same time that you're writing the tune, and you're just making it up line by line. And that's a good way to do it too. Some songwriters I know put together what is known as a dummy lyric. You know, they might have a few lines. Probably the most famous dummy lyric is Paul McCartney, when he was writing Yesterday. The original dummy lyric that he put in there was scrambled eggs, oh my baby, how I love your legs. And we're all grateful that he didn't leave that in there, and he changed it to what we now know as Yesterday. Another famous dummy lyric that actually survived into the final song is the song Tea for Two. I don't know if any of you know that song. You know, picture you upon my knee, just tea for two. I'm not going to sing the whole thing, but look it up. Tea for Two is a famous standard song, but the lyric is actually a dummy lyric that the lyricist just dashed off in one night, and it was meant to be a placeholder, and then they would replace it with the real lyrics. But they never did, and so the song ended up being it went out just the way it was. Now, another way to write is by writing a complete lyric first. This is actually a more rare way to write songs among pop songwriters. Maybe not many of you write this way, although maybe you've tried it. This is the main way that I write songs. I have several lyricists that I've worked with. I mentioned Sandy, one of my lyric partners. Another is a lady named Ellie. We wrote some children's songs together. When I can get hold of a good lyric, it, in a sense, draws the melody out of me. And this is actually the classical way to write a tune. Many of the famous classical composers like Schubert and Mozart, Beethoven, Schumann, they wrote what we might call songs. Some people refer to them as art songs because they're in the classical music genre. But nevertheless, they would usually start with a completed text. Sometimes they would set a poem to music or a text from the Bible. Whatever they could find that they liked, they would write the music to it. So the most famous pop musician who writes this way, of course, is Elton John. He's often stated that if there was no Bernie Taupin, there'd be no Elton John. And he's probably right. He didn't really feel like he was a good lyric writer. Maybe he could have been, but he found writing music much more to his liking, and he was very grateful to have a lyricist. Many times he's expressed his appreciation for having somebody who provides him with the words And then, as he's mentioned before, those lyrics draw the melodies out of him. So, and one way that pop songs are being written nowadays is they put together a complete track, the whole thing. They've got the drums, the bass, the keyboards, the guitar, the whole track is put together. And then the other songwriters will put a melody on top of that and some lyrics. And consequently, you have some songs nowadays where there's like 5 or 6 writers, which to me is pretty amazing. I've never had that many collaborators. It's just usually myself writing the words and the music, or working with a lyricist. Then there's one method that very few songwriters use, and that's to actually write out their songs on manuscript paper. But there are a few that do that. Burt Bacharach, for example, is a classically trained musician, and he likes to write away from his instrument. Now, you don't necessarily need classical training in order to do this. I have some writers that I've worked with who don't play an instrument, or maybe they play a little bit, but they don't feel confident enough to accompany themselves. And so they write a melody and a lyric, and that's pretty much it. And they present that to me. And then it's up to me to add the chords and create the accompaniment, add the chord progression. And if it's a good melody, then sometimes that melody just tells you what chords ought to go with it. And one of the advantages to writing this way, just writing a melody and a lyric without any accompaniment, is that you're forced to write an interesting melody. So a lot of times writers who start with a chord progression or a guitar riff or a piano part, the melody gets short, what's the word I'm looking for? Short shrift? They don't concentrate on the tune enough, and so the melody might come out flat or unimaginative. And if you remove the accompaniment, that melody doesn't stand alone. So a good melody stands alone, and you can play it, you can sing it a cappella, and it sounds good, it sounds complete. And so that's one of the advantages of writing without an instrument, just making up a melody and a lyric, and really then you've got a song. And then it's just a matter of adding the accompaniment. Well, the bottom line is I encourage you as a songwriter to try all of these methods. If you found that you've only been using 1 or possibly 2 of these particular songwriting methods, try them all. Try writing with a complete lyric in front of you and setting it to music. Try writing a melody and a lyric without the guitar in your hands or sitting at the piano, and see what you come up with. So there's a little bit about songwriting methods. And if you think of some other methods that you've used that I didn't mention here, because as I said, this is not an exhaustive list, then leave those down in the comments for me. I encourage you to like, subscribe, share. Let other people know about the Songwriter's Mentor. Check it out at songwritersmentor.com. I'll leave the link below. Thanks for watching.